Hello and welcome to the Dragons Lair podcast in association with Riverside Sports Bar, the home of sports fans in Newport. I'm Jamie and joining me for this one is Gareth. Hello, Gareth. How are we?
Hey Jamie, yep, good to be on. Cheers for having me.
No problem. And he's back. I'm pleased to say he is back. Gavin Thomas has returned. Welcome back, Gav. How are we?
I'm very well, yes. Sadly, life and work and illness got in the way of talking about dragons, so I've returned in the throes of misery. So
No, it's great to have you back. A lot of people have been asking where have you been. So yeah, really, really pleased you're back. Right, before we get into it, we've had another review, and this is a nice review, this one, Gav. Over on Apple, Surrey Taff gets in touch and he leaves this 5-star review. He or she, I presume it's a he. This is the only Dragons Rugby podcast that I'm aware of. Yeah, we are the only Dragons Rugby podcast. All the other Welsh rugby podcasts spend so little time on the Dragons, and it's good to have a pod dedicated to the team. Always honest and fair opinions. Jamie is a good host, thank you. And Gavin is very funny. That's very true. A good duo, he says. Keep up the good work. 5 stars. It's nice.
that's lovely.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
My
Excellent,
wife
isn't
would
it?
disagree with him because she feels I'm insufferable. But
We do appreciate all the feedback you send to us. If you leave us a 5-star review, you will get a mention on the pod. Not 4 stars, not 3. It has to be 5. That's the rules I've made up. So get in touch and you'll get a shout out on the pod. And speaking of shout outs, let's give a shout out to Dragon swinger Ashton Hewitt. Made a try scoring return from injury in Newport's 36-32 win at Aberavon on the weekend. It was Hewitt's first game back since suffering an ACL injury, which is way back in December 2023. So yeah, finally returned to the field and he scored a try in Newport's win. Very encouraging news, gents. I'm sure you'll agree.
Good
he's a
stuff.
quality player.
Yeah. Easy
Yes.
to forget how good he was. It was probably a fair few years ago now, and he was really pushing for a Welsh spot and so dangerous for us. And I would say we've missed him, but he's been out so long, it's almost beyond missing him now.
Yeah, you forget almost, don't you?
Yeah.
But he got into the squad, didn't he? He got into the squad. I want to say mid 23. Might have been earlier, and then he picked up an injury. Then he picked up another injury.
Yeah, I think he's been called into us a couple of times and then he's
Yeah.
got injured. So he's
Yeah.
had terrible luck with injury, Ashton, really terrible. But hopefully we'll see him in the Dragons jersey soon. But I just thought it was a nice bit of news to see him back
Yeah, it
finally
was
on the
superb.
field and making a try scoring return. So good stuff. In other bits of news then, I know you two have seen this report as well. There's a report in Rugby Pass on the weekend linking the Dragons to Ross Moriarty. Remember him? Yeah, so he's been released by Brive, who are apparently doing some cost cutting. And Dragons and Gloucester, the report says, are interested in bringing him back. Now, this could be a very speculative article. That's probably what it is. However, what I would say is, I don't know about you boys, I'd love to see Ross back. I would love to see Ross Moriarty back. I'd have him back at Rodney Parade in a heartbeat. What about you, Gavin? Would you have him back?
Well, yes, I've always liked Ross Moriarty, uh, but I think he would benefit us because our back row's good. Back row's probably the area of least concern, but having another abrasive character to go alongside Shane Lewis-Hughes would help. Also, I think Welsh rugby would benefit from having a big physical gain line breaking ball carrier.
Yeah, we've missed him terribly. I think Wales have missed him as well. And we know about his temperament, but he's a guy that gets over the gain line and he provides that aggression and ball carrying. What about you then, Gareth? Would you like to see Ross Moriarty back at Rodney Parade if it is true, this report?
Oh, yeah. I always enjoyed watching Ross pull on the Dragons jersey. One of those 100%ers. I actually listened to him recently on another podcast, and he was saying how much like he's put his passion into playing in France, and they've taken to him, but because he hates losing, and he kept emphasizing that point. So when I seen this rumor, I thought, oh, you may be heading to the wrong team there, mate, if you hate losing. But we're hoping for better times ahead. So I'd love to see him back. He was really good for us, and I know he's pushing on. I think he's 31 in April, and he's had a few injuries, but good player. Still got a good few years left in him, I think. So yeah, would
He's
love
a
to see
good
him back.
physical specimen, isn't he? You see his
Yeah,
Instagram, and like you see him in the gym and stuff. big boy, still training hard.
Yeah. I would have him back in a heartbeat. I love Ross
Yeah.
when he was with us. And I didn't like his exit. That was because of the freeze on contracts. Remember the WRU debacle? So it was a bit of a kick in the teeth at the time that we couldn't keep him. But we'll have to see. Like I said, I think it's one of those speculative articles the Rugby Pass often put out. But I just thought it was interesting to chat about it because I would love to see Moriarty back with Rodney Parade.
It's nice to see us linked with someone as well. Because
yeah,
it's good sometimes. The Dragons do keep a lot of business in-house, so we're quite professional. But sometimes as a fan, you do want to see a couple of leaked rumours and something to get excited about. And yeah, I'd love to see Ross back.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about names being mentioned. The only name I keep seeing is Tina Stabia. That's the only name I keep seeing. Yeah. Tina Stabia. So yeah, there you go then. Be nice to have Ross back.
It's not exciting, is it, Tina Stabia?
It's not going to put bums on seats, is it? Let's be honest. But we've spoken about it before. I like Tina Stabia. I actually think, and I've said this, I think he's better than Callum Sheedy. I think Callum Sheedy is crap. I would give Stabia over Sheedy any day of the week. I give him a 10.
And a lot of Cardiff fans seem to think that as well.
Yeah, some do. Yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I think Sheedy's crap. I do. I just rubbish, absolute rubbish. But
Stabia would be a good signing, but it's maybe not quite in line with what the owners are sort of promising either.
Well, it's not a marquee signing by any means, is it?
No,
so
we need a 10. We need an additional 10. There's no doubt about that.
I know we're going to talk about the Q&A, but David Wright did quite bluntly answer a question one time when there was a question around kicking, and he said, "We've signed a kicker." Is Tina Stabia the kicker? For me, I don't think his percentage is up there, is it?
No, I was about to say, Tina Stabia's goal kicking is pretty hot and cold, if I'm honest. If you speak to Cardiff fans, that's one of his weaknesses, is goal kicking. So he should fit in well at the Dragons, shouldn't he? Okay, so it's the perfect signing.
Yeah, he's kind of high 60s, isn't he? His kicking percentages.
Yeah, he's not very good at place kicking.
Not what we need, is it? We are desperate for
high 70s minimum. We want somebody who is hitting 8 out of 10 kicks.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
But he can turn over ball. He's very good at the breakdown, Tina Stabia. Very, very good.
And not really what you want to tend to do, though.
No, it does help. It does help, though, that you can actually turn over ball. Yeah, so anyway, that's the rumour mill. So what we're going to be talking about on this podcast is the Q&A that happened at Rodney Parade on Thursday night. Now, as we know, there've been many Q&As over the years, but this was probably the most important Q&A that the Dragons have had due to the current state of the club and Welsh rugby as a whole. Now, Gareth, you was there, as was I. Gavin, you wasn't there, but you've read the transcript, and there's other bits and pieces that I've told you about as well. So you're fully updated on what's been said. But we're going to go into it. We're going to have a deep dive into it, and then we'll sort of discuss things as we go along. So it kicked off at 6:30, and it started in the most Dragonsy way possible when the microphones didn't work. Well, at least one of them didn't work. So it was a great start. A few technical issues, very Dragonsy, but it did get underway at 6:32, and David Wright was the first to talk, the chairman. He thanked us for our patience, and he said, "Am I frustrated? Yes, especially with results. We recognise that things need to change. We need to invest. Not that we haven't been for 18 months. We have cleared debt." He was very clear on that. He has cleared the debt. But where do we want to put that? And then he talked about the sustainable business. He said, we need a sustainable business to invest into the site and the squad. Squad building would take a few seasons. We've heard that before, haven't we? We need to adhere to contracts that we have signed with existing players. He said, I know there's a lot of emotion, but I want to share facts. And this is what he said, I am not full of talking. I tend to work behind the scenes, but I know this is overdue. Gareth, David Wright is very different to David Buttress, isn't he? He seems to a bit more direct. They're very different characters, aren't they? Would you say, having listened to David Wright now at the Q&A and met him?
Yeah, definitely. I did briefly chat to him afterwards as well, and he's certainly straight talking. He does strike me as a man that doesn't want to be in front of the fans, but I feel like he is actually getting on with things in the background. And I don't think he really said anything to massively get us excited out of what he's actually doing. It was more of a realistic Q&A. We've been sold the dream previously. There's definitely some very positive things said, but it didn't feel like we were being spun a yarn. But time will tell. But yeah, he's definitely a different character to David Buttress, who we also owe a lot to, sort of saving us from the abyss. But yeah, I thought he came across pretty well, and he started off putting out a few fires before we could get a bit rowdy. So I think he probably handled it in the right way.
He got in there early, didn't he?
He
got
did,
in there really early. Yeah, very different to David Buttress. I just felt there was a lot more meat on the bones when David Wright spoke, and a bit more direct.
Yeah.
Whereas David Buttress is definitely a better talker, probably more polished, more smooth than David Wright. But David Wright, he got to the crux of it, didn't he, pretty early on, and I found him to be quite direct and pretty honest. Not that David's not honest, but you can tell these are two very different characters, I think. So then he started talking about the season so far. He said, this season was optimistic at the beginning. That's like every season, is there? Let's be honest. But it has gone downhill a bit after the Ospreys. And then someone shouted out a bit. And David Wright said, well, okay, a lot. He said, there are reasons for that, but I can't change where we are in the league and where we sit in the URC. He talked about the missed opportunities that we had. So he said, if we'd beaten one of the South African sides when we failed to convert, and Cardiff, sounds familiar, doesn't it? We will not be in this position, but that is all ifs and buts. He says, optimism has been diluted, and let's be honest, we have been second best in a lot of games. A lot of that, he said, is down to the depth of the squad. Spot on, Gavin, isn't he? Something that we've talked about a lot on the pod.
Yeah, the problem is, though, who's responsible for the depth of the squad? He is. This is a problem, isn't it? Yeah, we know the squad's not. We know the squad's not strong enough. We aren't responsible for recruitment. He is, and it's not strong enough.
Let's talk about recruitment then, because after this, there came a bombshell that nobody was expecting. So he said, I know it's been mentioned a lot about our recruitment. Let me talk about that post and present. He said, I will not name names, but I believe our process and due diligence was poor for recruitment last season. Or last year, I should say. That got a round of applause because everyone knows our recruitment has been, well, it's been shite boys, hasn't it? Let's be honest. It's been a total flop. They just have. He said, not just how it was perceived, the recruitment, but how it was done. Some players have hardly played. So he said, how has that happened? And this comes the bombshell. There was no medical assessment before contracts. They were medically diagnosed after. Audible groans and moans from the crowd. Me and Dad just laughed, but there was a lot of groaning going on. He said that's the way it was. He said some players on paper are very talented, but the process was wrong. What more can I say? They are contracted and we have to adhere to that. We have to change the process. I can't change the past, he said, but I hope you can trust me that the processes were initiated with head of recruitment, Jonathan Westwood. He said that he goes through a thorough list and a scouting process that gets presented to me and Reece Blumberg every week. With a coaching team, we are now reviewing players every week. So that was the bombshell, wasn't it, Gareth? The whole room was just gasping, really, at this revelation. What did you make of that, the fact that these players were signed and there wasn't a proper medical assessment?
I'm still just absolutely gobsmacked. I mean, my old man was sat next to him and he just sort of looked, we just looked at each other and his face almost said, is it that much of a surprise? But I mean, we're a professional club. There's only four professional teams in Wales. We should be run like a professional club. It's really, really worrying. And, we bought season tickets off what we were told in the summer of these players being bought. And you think, well, hang on a minute, I've invested my money into watching this club and you can do your due diligence signing players that I'm essentially paying to go watch or not watch because they're not actually getting on the field. It just sort of sums us up, really, doesn't it? It's an absolute shambles off the field, and it's not like it was different owners then, though. It's the same. It's been the same ownership group. So why? How is that? How have they taken the foot off? How have they taken their eye off the ball there? I appreciate he did allude to a lot of things that had gone wrong. I still think they could have taken a little bit more responsibility and maybe apologized for it. It didn't go quite that far. But yeah, it's just an absolute shambles, really, isn't it?
It was. It
Imagine,
was.
imagine any other job saying, "Oh well, we haven't done any checks on this thing that we brought into our organisation." It's insane. And the thing that irritates me, we keep getting told how well run the club is, and we should be proud of that. It's a really well run club.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest it's not that well run if you aren't doing medical checks on players you're signing up for a number of years.
I mean, two of the things that he mentioned then was Cummins had a history of concussion over the last 3 years and had missed a lot of rugby. And Funaki had sepsis in February. I mean, that's two big red flags. I mean, I wish them both all the best, and
Of course, yeah.
of course, but they are two massive red flags. And I appreciate in our market we might have to take a couple of risks, but we also can't afford to take risks on players who have got that sort of medical history. They're not the type of risks we need to take in.
There's risks, and there's running naked into a burning building, isn't there? It's that's the challenge. And a bloke with a history of concussion, and that's terrible. I feel for Steve Cummins, but it's not preparing you for it. And he had sepsis in February, knew he was having another operation on his knee, where he also developed sepsis.
Very worrying, isn't it? Very worrying.
It's bonkers.
Yeah. I think for me, there's a lot of finger pointing going on about the bad recruitment. So David Buttress has been very vocal about this on X. I don't disagree with what he's saying. He's absolutely right. David Wright was very critical about the recruitment. The problem I have is no one's taking responsibility. No one's saying, do you know what? We messed up here. As a collective failing, it's our fault. Nobody has said sorry. Nobody's taking responsibility. And that's what I don't like about what's happening. Yes, criticize recruitment, but hold your hand up and say, do you know what? Yeah, because I've seen people point fingers at Di Flanagan, and I think, well, hang on a minute. The board signed off those signings. As far as I'm concerned, this is a collective failure. Everyone's to blame for this. Don't go pointing fingers at poor old Di, and then the board try and absolve themselves of any responsibility. So
it's frustrating. When I was a head teacher for a decade and a half, and some of the things, some of the errors I made were my fault because they were errors I made, and sometimes things went wrong in the school that I weren't directly responsible for, but that was still my fault because ultimately it was my name on the sign. It was my name that went on any form of accountability, and what they seem not to be keen on is taking any accountability.
Yeah, I think poor Di, he has been shoveled a bit of the blame, a bit of a scapegoat. And
yes, yeah.
Even if he was left short and wearing too many hats, well, you're the owners that left him short. You're the ones that didn't bring in more support as a defence coach and didn't bring in a head of recruitment. Like, fair play for Di for taking it all on, trying to do the best he could. I feel sorry for Di. I really want to see an announcement that Di's landed a decent rugby coaching job somewhere. I'd look forward to seeing that news because I think he's certainly got a lot to offer. But yeah, there was missing an apology. I think we missed that. That was missing from the Q&A. Nobody actually said sorry to us as fans who would put our hands in our pockets and go stand in the cold to essentially watch absolute shite week in, week out.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I appreciate the club saying we got it wrong, but nobody's actually taking responsibility for it. Everyone's pointing fingers, and that's what I don't like about the whole saga at the minute. But yeah, that drew shocks and groans, didn't it, from the crowd? That revelation. I don't think we was quite prepared for that, was we?
No.
Oh dear. So what else do you talk about then? So he's talked about IDing players and enticing them to come to Dragons. Why would they come to the Dragons? So he says, we have a narrative that's quite positive, and the intention is to turn this around and strengthen the squad considerably. I'm not going to say we will win the URC. As soon as he said this, I'm thinking, oh, please don't make promises like this because we've heard it all before. He said, but maybe we can challenge in a few years to get to the main European Cup.
That was a more realistic option. A few years to be in the top 8 is
yeah.
Fair.
He said, we have to be realistic, but we can't, and we won't have the same situation next year, he pledges. It won't be overnight, but we can turn some of these losses into wins. So you think that's a realistic target? What David Wright is saying there then?
I think it is a target we should be aiming for because if he said we're going to be in the top 4, it's it's clearly not going to happen. But I think, you know, it is baby steps, and 3 years' time is a fair way off for us to build. But then some of his points, you think, well, we've heard this last year as well.
We've heard this before. Yeah, this is the jam tomorrow element that I keep talking about, you know.
I really, you know, as fans, you don't want to be naive, and you want to support your club. That's, you know, that's why we're here. We love our club. We want the club to do well. And I don't want to keep looking back. I'm like, well, hang on, I have heard this before. So why should I believe it now? And there were some very promising things said, but it is hard for me to believe it until I see it.
And the thing is, saying, oh, this is a realistic target. But right now, it's not a realistic target.
No.
Because, you know, telling me that we're going to recruit X amount of players, and I know we'll come to that, Jamie. At the minute, I have no trust in the process. So tell me, like, this is a realistic target because we're going to have these group of players. Well, let's see the players first before we start making any targets, shall we?
Yeah, quite right. He said that we've got the right people in place. I think we have, personally. He talked about Reece Blumberg. He said Reece is on board and has done a great job off the field. But he said on the field is where we need to make some of the changes. So there's a recognition now that everything's great off field. Now is the time to start focusing on field. The investments, he said, will come from the new WRU deal. He talked about having the new PRA papers. Now, that's been agreed now, according to Wales Online, but it hasn't been officially signed off. So that's good news. It finally looks like this long-running saga is going to come to an end. What else did he say? He said, I'm hopeful we can get to a final solution at last. The cap will be increased for all of us and give us additional monies to compete. He then said the rest of the money will come from us as owners. We have all paid six-figure sums, all of us, he said. We have cleared the debt. Now, I was thinking about this earlier. Well, not earlier, a couple of days ago, actually, about the COVID loan. But I'm guessing with this new WRU deal, that sort of takes away the COVID loan, doesn't it? So I was wondering about whether that included the COVID debt or not. You know, the debt that was passed on to us. That wasn't our debt. That one.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, for all four teams as well. Absolute scandalous. He said, we will be in a situation to put money into the squad. We will be in a position to get one marquee player at least. So he's promised a marquee player. Now, let's get on to potential recruitment. He said, all of you know where we need to strengthen. There are key areas, and he said it's partly been done already. It would be wrong to start naming players, and I want our players to be still fighting for their contracts whilst it's livelihoods we are talking about. So he said he didn't want to name names out of respect, and because the current crop that he does have, Gavin, he wants them to fight for their contracts, which I thought was pretty positive, actually. I thought that was a good way of putting it, to say, look, you know, you still have a future at the club, but you've got to earn and fight for that contract. I thought that was a good way of putting it. Do you think?
Yeah, you know, it's reasonable, isn't it? It's reasonable to say to players, but there will be players at the club who must know that, you know, the exit door is looming.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't want to name names, but I think we all know, don't we, as supporters?
Yeah.
The guys that need to be, who have been with us for a little while, but probably need to be moved on now. And it's nothing personal. It's just how it is. You know, it's just we need to get better, and unfortunately, we need more quality.
You have to be able to perform at the level you're performing at.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You know, kind of, and there's players who've gone from us who are now doing, you know, all right in the English Championship, doing okay in the SRC, because that was their level.
Yeah.
No shame in that.
No, not at all. That's just how it is. He said, we have signed 5 players. So 5 players are done. He then said we are aiming for another 5. So it looks like we're going to get 10 players at the club, which does make you think there might be some sort of a clear out. Like, I don't think it'd be a huge jumbo sale, but it does sound like a few players are going to be moved on. If you're going to bring 10 in, it does sound like a few are going to be on their way, doesn't it?
I think, you know, kind of, if there's this extra investment, we might lose 6 to get 10 in. So like a net gain of 4.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, on that, Gav, if you don't mind me jumping in, I spoke to David Wright afterwards. So I was quizzing him on the so having 10 coming in, potentially 10, with the budget going up to 5.1, so an extra 600k plus the marquee player, and you know we're losing Ollie, Fairbrother, Brown, Basham, all off the wage bill, and
Yeah.
whatever we're paying for JJ Hanrahan. So I said, these must be 10 expensive players. Because if the budget's going up by 600k, plus you're losing those players, plus we know we're probably going to lose a few more. And he said yes, and he said the squad size is essentially going to stay the same. So we're expecting 8 to 10 in, 8 to 10 out.
Okay, that's interesting.
So you'd imagine, besides Basham, the 10 coming in should hopefully be of a much higher quality than the 10 leaving, but that remains to be seen.
The JJ Hanrahan thing is insane, isn't it?
Yeah. The Dragons are still paying off his contract.
We're well run. We're a well run club.
And this is another thing, because when I saw that, I was like, what?
He's a successful Dragon, isn't he, this season?
I thought he signed a contract with another club, so therefore, he's not our problem.
Really is. Because we're still paying him.
It's the Leeds United thing, isn't it? Leeds United did all this.
Oh, yeah. Ridsdale, wasn't it? Peter Ridsdale.
Yeah.
I remember, yeah. Oh, dear. Oh, let's hope we don't end up what happened to Peter Ridsdale Leeds United. I'm sure we won't. So, he was not going to name names. He made that clear. David Wright said, I'm not naming names. We did not have a clue who we'd signed. What he did say, though, is out of those 5 players that we've signed, 3 of them are internationals. And there was some murmurings in the crowd. He said, I'm not telling you which country. And I think he made a joke, didn't he, Gav, about we signed her from Afghanistan or Azerbaijan. Yeah, he made a joke which got a little bit of applause. But he did reveal, because I was thinking about this on the way down, I thought they're going to have to either announce a new re-signing or a new signing. We needed good news, because that's all that's been coming out of this club is bad news. I felt like they needed to announce something, and they did. And it was really good news. Got a big round of applause. Elliott Dee has re-signed a new deal, and that's great news, isn't it, Gav, to have Elliott being with us?
You know, he is one of us, isn't he? You know, kind of, and he could have probably earned better money going to play in England, and someone would bite his arm off because he's a good modern hooker. But no, that's really positive news, and it's good, you know, kind of. And it's a shame about Tane, but I think Tane is probably more replaceable than Elliott is.
I agree with that.
Because the hookers are harder to come by.
Yeah, he's a test hooker.
You know, he's a test hooker, an experienced test hooker. But there's loads of back rows out there. There's loads of back rows out there.
Yeah.
And Tane is a good player, very good player.
Yeah.
But there are other players of that quality we could get.
No, I agree. Gareth, was you happy with the news that Elliott Dee re-signed?
Absolutely delighted. I think he's a proper Dragons legend. And I was talking about it with my brother, and has there been another regular Wales test player that stayed at the Dragons for their entire career? So I think
that's a good question. Nothing's coming to mind. A regular Dragon.
Yeah, there's people who've had the odd cap and have stayed, but he's been in the Welsh squad and he would have had offers to leave every time his contract's up. So for me, he's a Dragons Hall of Famer. He's 150 caps, and let's hope he goes on and gets many more. He's top legend. Always like watching him. You can see him. So I'm on the terrace, and if he's been subbed off and the crowd is chanting, he's chanting along on the sidelines. Like, he's in it. He loves it. He's proper proud man of Gwent. So yeah, chuffed.
Where's he from? Is he from Newport?
Newbridge.
Newbridge, oh.
Yeah, Newbridge. I quite like what he said in his statement about being on the terraces as a kid, watching the Dragons and putting on that jersey. He is a proud man of Gwent, and I was really pleased. I got a lot of time for Elliott Dee as a person and as a player, so I was quite happy with that. It's really good news.
Very good news.
And he should be starting Welsh hooker.
He absolutely should.
Yeah, 100% without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it does soften the blow of Tane leaving, knowing that we've re-signed Ben Carter and Elliott Dee. He did talk about Aaron Wainwright as well. He said that, we got 18 months remaining, so he's not going to go anywhere in the meantime. But I thought it was really good news. So we needed that. We needed some good news.
Yeah.
Jamie, you're a man in the know. Do we know which players' contracts are expiring this year.
Well, I know Lloyd Evans has got a 1-year deal. I'm afraid I don't really know the ins and outs of who's leaving. Chris Kerwin normally puts up an article, doesn't he, saying so-and-so is out of deal. Obviously, Leon Brown was out of contract, but he's retired now. So I'm not entirely sure. Gav, do you have any info on players who are out of contract?
I think ones I know who are out: Jordan Williams, George Knott.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who else. Not a lot of players on 2-year contracts. If they didn't sign last year, it's anyone who didn't.
Kai Evans, was he on a 2-year contract?
Oh,
Kai Evans,
he's out of contract. Yeah, you're right. Forgot about him.
Yeah.
It's the norm now, 2-year deals. It used to be 3, didn't it? But now it's 2 years, and that goes by like that, doesn't it? So
of those 3, and George Knott, I'd be all right with keeping hold of him.
Yeah,
Good
handy
player.
player.
The other 2. Probably. I'm disappointed about Kai Evans because I do like Kai Evans as a player, but we've barely seen him.
No, that's the problem.
Well, if you told me we're going to pick a youngster at 15 and spend that money on the front 5, I'd have the money on the front 5.
That's a really good point. Maybe now we really need... Well, he has got a lot of opportunities already, but probably push you Anderson now.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I think he is a test quality player in the making.
And if you're signing a 10, that's Angus back to 15.
Yes.
I do like Hugh Anderson though. Like he looks for that offload and he's got a touch of class. If we could just see him in a side that could play a bit more rugby.
I like him a lot. Yeah.
If a team that had attacking structure and wasn't expecting him to live off scraps.
Yeah.
Let's talk about coaching then. Because David Wright was he was going to talk about coaching, and we knew this was the moment where we knew whether Philo was going to stay or, as head coach, I should say, or whether he's going to revert back to defense coach. And they announced that they agreed in principle that Philo Tiatia will be head coach. Very diluted enthusiasm in the room when I was announced. There was a guy behind me who just went, "Oh." That's what they said. It was just it didn't get a round of applause. It didn't really merit any reaction. It was sort of muted, wasn't it? And they talked about why they've appointed Philo as head coach. They say, what we've seen with him galvanizing the coaching team, he's been impressive. The man has got great stature. He's considered and is a tough guy who will get results out of this team. Hasn't happened yet, but they think that he can get results out of this team. I believe he can step up, but he won't do that alone. And then David Wright said, we are finalising a list to bring in a senior experienced coach to support Philo. Philo has put some names in the hat, some New Zealanders that he's worked with. They will be experienced. I don't want to be that guy that said, hey, I told you so, but hey, I told you so. I told you this was going to happen. I called it on the pod. I said they'll keep Philo as head coach and they'll bring in experienced assistant alongside him, who is going to look after defence, as David Wright said. Gavin, Philo as head coach. Happy? That's the reaction, is it?
No.
That says it all.
Great player at Ospreys. Great player. Yeah, he's hardly setting the house alight, is he? And it's not just because the results have been poor, because, it'd require Merlin to, kind of get these players to achieve at the kind of levels we would love them to. But he's never sounded that keen on the job. When he has been a head coach, he's not been great. He's never stayed very long in any head coach's job. It just feels underambitious. It really does.
Yeah. So they talked about this, about his demeanour, didn't they, Gareth? They said, look, I know a lot of supporters have been talking about his demeanour, how he looks like he doesn't want to be here and all this, but apparently he is very passionate and he wants the job. He is committed. He's very happy. Gareth, what did you think of it when our announcement was made that Philo was going to be head coach? I saw it coming a mile off. I don't know if you did, but your reaction to that?
And you did say it was going to happen. Predictable but underwhelming. And I get the reasons they gave about Tiatia maybe coming across slightly, as I said, reluctant head coach vibes previously. I get why he might have that. But for me, that doesn't really wash. Because they said, oh, he might have been embarrassed then if he ended up as a number 2. Well, be embarrassed. Have the balls to say you want the job. And like, if you want your players to go out there and put everything on the line, well, can't you put everything on the line and like lead by example? We don't see everything, and I think he has been up against it. So the results do reflect the coaching, but there is a bigger picture. So let's hope off the field, what they're seeing, he is going to be the right man. Time will tell, but he's probably coming in having to win us over now rather than maybe having the backing from the off. It was slightly underwhelming, to be honest. But if we get a very good number 2 in, then great. That would be good. But again, they touched on how good Sam Hobbs and Matt O'Brien are, but they mentioned they're just so inexperienced. They need more experience around them. You just think, well, if they are good but they're inexperienced, why aren't they coaching in the Super Rugby Cymru? And why don't we just get someone experienced? Why are they learning on the job when we are clearly desperate for high quality coaching? So I do think the board have lacked ambition. Blumberg
or just some coaching would help, because the backs don't look like there's any coaching going on. No, well, I'm not trying to offend Matt O'Brien, but it doesn't look like the backs are doing anything.
The stats don't lie, do they? I think we went through them before, that the line breaks and everything are poor. Blumberg did say there was a lot of interest in the role from a high caliber of people, but that's also.
Do you believe him?
I'm
not calling him.
It's an easy thing if you're listening,
to say, I'm not calling you a liar, mate. But
yeah, I did think, well, mate, that sounds great, but it's a very easy thing to say when was Philo the pick of a small crop.
There were some eyebrows raised at that. I think that's the transcript that they'll come to. But one of the biggest takeaways for me is they really believe in Philo. They love Philo, this board.
Yeah.
They are all in on him.
Yeah.
They really do think that he's the guy that's going to turn this all around. I'm not so sure, but I wish him all the best. I love Philo. I think he's a great guy. But there was a lot of supporters who wanted us to appoint an experienced head coach, and I knew that was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. And I'm not saying that to be wise after the event. I just knew I could see this coming a mile off. They were all in on Philo from the very moment he arrived to Rodney Parade.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. In a cruel and sort of ironic way, Dave Flanagan, who did push to get Philo over here, he was the driving force to get Philo over here. He appointed his own successor, when you think about it. But that's how it's gone. That's how it's gone. So yeah, what else was said? He did say that they are hoping for a senior advisor to come in, so we will have 2 more resources for the coaching team. Not exactly sure what senior advisor actually means or how they'd fit into the coaching team. So experienced assistant and a senior advisor is what they're saying. So they're bolstering the team, but nobody is moving on. So we still got the same forwards and same backs coach.
Like senior advisor as well. Oh God!
I don't really know what that means. So
it fills me with bloody dread. Because, well, what does it mean? Does it mean you get someone like we got Paul Turner in, and like no disrespect to Paul Turner, a man I've had the privilege to watch as a player,
friend of the pod.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great coach when he was with the Dragons. But he's not going to bring anything new to it, and he's helping, but what is he bringing? And we bring a senior advisor in. Let's say a guy who coached 10 years ago. I'm just picking I'm picking an idea of what's he going to bring to the club right now, or maybe don't do it like that, Philo. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's a bit. I need a bit more information on that senior advisor. That's so. It's just not enough meat on the bones there, is there? We need to know sort of how they fit in. But that's what they've said anyway. He talked about balancing the books. He did stress that the owners are not taking any dividends out of this club. That's not why they got involved, he said. And he will reinvest in the playing environment. The intention is to invest, not pocket money. And then David said, actually, this is costing me money. I don't take a fee for this job. I could easily go away and take consultancy. So he's made it clear, I don't have to be here, lads. I'm a rich man. I don't have to do this, but I'm doing it because I'm a Gwent boy, want to get involved, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. I get that.
I think he needed to clarify that as well, though, to be fair. Owning the land and investing there and wearing the black, you do think, hang on, are they in it for the club or are they in it for themselves?
Yes.
So I'm glad it was clarified.
Yeah, I think he's not really on social media much, but I think he knows what's getting said.
Yeah.
That's the impression I got, or someone is feeding him. What the supporters are saying. Because I have seen a few supporters saying, "Oh, it makes you wonder why they got involved. Did he really care, or did they just want the acid of Rodney Parade?" But he made it clear, you don't have to be here. I could go away. I could take consultancy, good money. I don't have to be here, but I want to be here because I care. And I thought, okay, fair enough. Cabbage Patch always comes up in Q&As, doesn't it? Cabbage Patch. Nothing's been done about it for years, but it keeps coming up. He did reveal, David Wright, that the Dragons have invested over 100k in feasibility surveys on the ground to see what they can do. And they're talking to Newport Council. He said it's not going to be a hotel or a supermarket. It's going to be something that adds value for us as a club and a city. We will go back to the council and other stakeholders to get an agreement and potential funding. We have invested money in that over the next couple of months. So what I'm hearing is it could be a sporting facility. That's what I'm hearing, but there's all sorts of rumours about that. But it needs to be something. That Cabbage Patch, it needs to utilise money. It needs to be, because it's nothing, is it?
How big is that space?
Well, it's not that big, is it? Gareth,
No.
what would you say?
I'd say it's probably like the same as the ground again, isn't it? It's probably almost is it a 50-50 split if you look at the aerial views sometimes?
I didn't think it was that big. I don't know.
Not just the grassy patch, but the tent,
the actual that's
the whole area is
the north end. Yeah, it's quite big.
Vast,
yeah. I think the Marquee is awful.
Yeah,
that tent. It's so shabby. So shabby.
It'd be great if they do this sporting facility. Fantastic. But what I really want to see, and I know it will take time, is when it is done, that everything is done and it's polished. It's not a botched job. And it's not still poor facilities around it. Let's have a clubhouse. Let's have everything looking like a top flight rugby club should.
Yeah, they're very keen to get Newport Council involved. They've been talking to the council for months on end, trying to do something. So let's hope we actually see something. And then David Wright ended by saying, these are the facts. This is why I got involved. Trust me on recruitment. If I don't deliver, I will come back and you can throw anything at me. Is what he said. So he was quite confident. And he said, look, I'm disappointed with where we are. It hurts. The players are giving effort, but we've had to run with a lot of youngsters who've had a baptism of fire. Fair point. It is fair. He's spot on there. It does prove that although we have talent coming through, you need experience. Again, all perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. We are missing a lot of that, but we can't change it. It's not a lack of effort, he said. It's a lack of depth that counts at this level. He knows his stuff, David. He's a rugby man himself. He talked about that when he played for Cardiff and, Pontypool. He gets it.
He played for Newbridge as well, didn't he?
I'm sure he did, I think he did. So that was the end of David Wright's speech, and he got applause. We then come on to Rhys Blumberg then, and he talked about recruitment. He said, recruitment was at the forefront of all the emails we received ahead of tonight. So supporters were asked to give their questions in, and then they were going to read them out and answer one by one. But they had so many about recruitment, they just decided, you know what, let's just answer it now. He talked about Jonathan Westwood, bigged up Jonathan Westwood a lot. He's had a big impact, he said. And he also says this, which made me slightly nervous. You will be pleased with who we have signed, all of which will either start or fight for a start. And I'm thinking, yeah, but Rhys, the Dragons recruitment over the years, mate, it's not a good track record. So when you say you'll be pleased with who we signed, I'm thinking we'll be the judge of that as supporters, rather than you saying what you think. Because what you think is good recruitment, Dragons, is very different to what I might think or someone else.
Well, we were told lots of things about the players who were coming in this season.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
We were told recruitment was good last year, weren't we?
And, we've seen Lord Lucan more than we've seen some of these players. So, it's slightly worrying.
Lord Lucan. Question time. So that was that. Questions open to the floor. There were some really good questions, including one from you, Garth, which we'll come to. A couple of absolutely pointless ones, as you always get these Q&As. Thankfully, though, nobody mentioned sausage and chips and a clubhouse, because that was my biggest fear.
Yeah,
We
I
didn't get
hate
any sausage and chips chat in
the sausage
clubhouses.
and chips, and the why does Rodri kick the ball to the chairman is the is my favourite one as well. But that didn't
Well,
crop up.
yeah, we'll get on to the questions. Like I said, there was a couple of pointless ones. Someone waffled for like 5-10 minutes as well about something. So anyway, the first question came in from Clive. Lovely Clive. I know Clive well. He's a good bloke. And he was saying, so you mentioned about our head coach and we got a senior coach, he said, but can we have a defence coach? Perfectly valid question. Blumberg said the first 7 games when Philo was defence coach, the improvement was significant. And it was, boys, wasn't it? We talked
Yeah,
about
we
that on
both
the
said
pod.
that. Both said it. Yeah.
He then said he had to pivot and he had a senior academy coach helping out. That maybe explains a few things. But he did say he will be appointing a senior defence coach, an experienced coach. He says we have some great coaches, but they are all, but to be fair, he did say they are all fairly new to it. So he's admitted, look, they're new to this. They're learning on, they're great coaches, but they're new. They're learning on the job. And I think it shows, doesn't it?
I think they're learning on the job bit is right. Let's wait till we make any decisions about how good they are.
Yeah. There was a few grumblings about, someone grumbled about having a kicker, a goal kicker. And David Wright chipped in and said, one of the signings we made is a kicker. If that's Tinas De Beer, no, he won't be a kicker because, as we mentioned before, his goal kicking isn't the best. But
from David Wright, the way he comes across, it makes me feel like it wouldn't be Tinas De Beer because it makes me think he wouldn't put up with that sort of kicking percentage. He seems like he would get angry about a player performing poorly. And not that Tinas is a poor performer, he's a good player, but his kicking isn't good enough.
His goal kicking is poor, yeah. That's why I said I think he'd be a good sign for the Dragons. He fit in well. There was a question that came in. This is one of the more pointless ones. If you are listening to this and you asked this question, I appreciate it, but it was pointless because this is out of the Dragons' control. And this gets asked at every Q&A I've been to. They complain about the scheduling in the URC and the fact we've had so many home games in the first block. Now, I get the frustration. Yeah. I absolutely understand where he's coming from, but it's got nothing to do with the Dragons. So Blumberg said, we've got no say in scheduling, which is frustrating. They do tend to give us a bum deal because we've been down the bottom for years, which they don't do for Leinster. I thought that was good honesty.
Yeah.
I appreciated that. Well done, Reece. I thought that was really good. Well made. He did say we're going to raise that with the URC. Oh, yes. A question came in about the Challenge Cup. So the selections that Philo made in the Challenge Cup, and this is something that you spoke about, Gavin, as well. That Montpellier game came up. Why did we make so many changes and played a load of kids? Blumberg said, I share your frustration. A number of players were unavailable. That first week of December, they were trying to get boys fit. He was aware that we hand played some others and it presented an opportunity to blood players. Not sure that was the right time for it, but there we go. How we didn't win Montpellier, he said, I don't know. The win was out their back. So what did he say? It was harder not to score than to score, wasn't it? Or something like that. Yeah. He said it. He said he did say that's a question for the rugby team, and he mentioned that Philo might be doing a Q&A in the future. So that's the kind of question to ask, the coaches. Yeah, because that was something that you complained about, Gavin, as well, wasn't it? The selection in the Challenge Cup.
Well, we aren't winning the URC. We aren't getting in the top 8. We could have gone into the knockout stages of Europe. We could have given the fans something to hold on to, and we chose not to, is how I am choosing to interpret that squad selection.
Yeah. The next question came from a guy who waffled for what felt like 10, 15 minutes. And I'm thinking, what's your question here, mate? And when he eventually finished, I still didn't know what his question was. But he was basically talking about finances. He was saying we're not on a level playing field of England and France. It's like, well, yeah, we know that. David Wright just said, look, we're constrained by a cap. He talked about the English game not being sustainable. He said, I don't worry about what other clubs do. I worry about pro rugby being played here, and we will balance the books whilst being competitive as we can. He said, as owners, we want to make this sustainable. That kept coming up, that word a lot, sustainable. He said, I haven't got a limited pocket, so we're going to have to be sustainable. And he did talk about other business managers joining the Dragons to help with more investment. So,
glamorous.
Yeah, indeed. But again, it was one of those questions where you thought, like, It's not really relevant.
Well,
is it?
I'm not sure a Dragons Q&A is a point to have a rant about late period capitalism, really, is it? You know, it's
No.
I don't think we can change the world economic system.
David Wright said, "We are the most sustainable rugby business in Wales at the moment." That's a big claim. It's a big claim. We are in a more positive situation than other teams, and that's a good thing, which it is. It is. But he's
It-
suggesting we're in a better financial position than Scarlets, Ospreys, and
We might well be, but it makes no bloody difference to what's happening on the field currently.
yeah, we can continue to do what we do without the need of worrying about paying bills or players. So he's saying, look, there's no financial worries here. You
Oh,
know,
good.
we're pretty good. And he did say, I appreciate supporters might not prioritise being sustainable, but the co-owners have been here 14 months ago, me in the summer, and the order of play was to stabilise, then go after talent, then go after more talent again. Our plan by year 3 is to be in a different place to where we are now. There has to be foundations laid throughout the business. So he did get a little bit narky, Gav, didn't he? So I said, look, I know supporters have been saying about, the business being sustainable. I'm not having a go at the Dragons of being sustainable because that's just stupid. I mean, of course, I want us to be sustainable. My complaint and my criticism was they have prioritised it so much that it's overlooked what's happening on the field. That was my complaint, and I stick to that.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with you.
And they didn't really state that that's what the first year was going to be about to us. They told us last year that this season we would improve on the field, and we haven't. So
yeah, exactly.
Frustrating.
Blumberg is saying about our recruitment process. He said they've changed how we're selling ourselves now as a realistic prospect to a player in their prime. That's changed dramatically. He said, we make it very clear we are not trying to sign people at the end of their career. I mean, that's something the Dragons have done in the past, sign players who are probably past their prime.
He did use the word prime. When he said the word 3 internationals as well, someone did shout former internationals, didn't they? And I think Blumberg did say again, you will be happy with the 3 international players we're signing. I mean, again, when I see it,
I need names.
Good, former international. No offense to Matthew Screech, who I love, but Matthew Screech is an international.
Well, that's the thing. When they say, we've signed say for example, they come out and say, we've signed a Welsh international lock. Well, that could be Rory Thornton from Cardiff. Listen, nothing against Rory Thornton, right? He would actually be a better option than one or two other locks we have at the moment. Yeah. But when you say Welsh international lock, supporters get their hopes up.
Yeah.
And then you end up with someone like Rory Thornton, and then it's kind of like, oh, okay.
Or Sam Cross or someone. He's not a second row.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
Sam Cross is an international.
We need to be careful with the internationals bit because, are they former? Are they current? Have they just had a couple of caps? So
they made it seem like they're current and good quality, but again, proof's in the pudding, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we've pulled in current internationals now, haven't we? In Polar, and he's hardly setting the world alight, is he?
No, and he's actually a loose end or tight head. He was brought in to cover tight head. The guy's played a lot of his rugby at loose head. He's a loose head.
Scrummage. Yeah,
he might be able to on the other side of the scrum.
Yeah. And it is massively bloody different.
Of course it is. Yeah. Makes you appreciate what Brock did when he was scrummaging both sides of the scrum for the Dragons. Yeah. One of the best ever overseas players. Anyway, Blumberg was saying by recruiting better players, the next recruitment cycle will be easier. So we already have some great players, but the more we get, the deeper it gets. We're getting some traction on that, he said. So he's really confident in these signings that we've made, and he's confident we'll get traction from it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask this question, but David Wright got in ahead of me because I was actually going to put my hand up for this. He talked about Dragons needing psychological support, which is something that I've spoken about a lot on this podcast. He said, I've asked if we need psychological support because he said winning is a habit and so is losing. Very true. He talked about Dragons needed to change the mindset. He believes he has one of the best setups out of the 4 Welsh regions, where they train and house themselves. And he talked about signing Ryan Chambers from the WRU. And apparently, now this was interesting, Philo questioned whether the players at Gwent look after themselves in the same way as they do back in New Zealand. So we've seen some things that he's not happy with. And do we have the right support network? That was interesting, Gareth, isn't it? What did you think of that? Philo questioning
this was
prep and everything.
one of my favourite parts of the evening, because I think it was really honest, and it made me feel like the owners do understand what the problems are at the Dragons, which they can't just be papered over. It's very believable that we're probably not at the standard of professionalism of other clubs. And Tila wants to raise those standards. But what really concerns me is I was at a Q&A a couple of years ago with Di Flan, spoke to him afterwards, absolutely lovely bloke. And he said that Jamie Roberts had spoken to him after training saying, these boys aren't working hard enough. There's people there not taking the gym work seriously enough, and they're not listening to me, Di. I'm a British Lion, and they're not listening to me. Well, Jamie Roberts was with us like 5 years ago. Why have we not changed anything since then? Have we just let this rot continue? Well, we have let this rot continue. So that's quite alarming for me. I think Ryan Chambers is a really good appointment. Listen to Scrum 5 podcast. I think after we beat the Ospreys and Cuthbert was on there, and he mentioned he spoke to Chambers because he knows him from his time with Wales. Yeah. And I think he said something along the lines of, Ryan said, we're probably at about a 6 or a 7 where we can be with fitness. But he said next season, we'll probably be a lot better and we'll see more of the benefits. And that was from Cuthbert, who's got no reason to give us good news. And he doesn't often. So that I feel like that's a really promising appointment. But yeah, on Tia point, worrying that we've got the wrong mindset, that is a concern. So I think that shows the number 2 that comes in alongside him is a massive appointment for our culture.
The culture thing's important as well. I'm doing football writer Jonathan Wilson. I don't know if you read any of his stuff. Jonathan Wilson talks about 2 of the key appointments that changed English football. One of them was Arsene Wenger, who changed the way that football is trained and ate and viewed football. Another was a guy called Bill Basic, who was a sports psychologist. And kind of they revolutionized English football, both of them separately in different ways. It's not going to be a bad thing if we're going to try to improve the professionalism of our players and improve their mindset, because losing every week is hard.
Yeah, it's good that it's been identified, because it's never really been put out there before that we've got that problem, even though we've all felt it. So
we've said it as supporters, in fairness, haven't we? But it's never come from the club. Yeah, you're right.
So I'm glad now it's been accepted that there is a problem, because you can't address something that you're not accepting is there. So it's probably a step in the right direction, but it's still frustrating because, again, you pay for your season tickets and players aren't taking it serious enough and not working hard enough. That's just not acceptable.
And think of any terrace, how many people would give up, a lot to go on the field once and represent the club. It's why we all pull our boots on when we're 10 years of age, isn't it? Because we want to play for, our local club. We want to play for Wales.
Yeah, absolutely. A question came in, which was really good to begin with, until he had an unnecessary dig of Ross Moriarty and Richard Ibbard. Apart from that, the first part of his question was really good. He basically said, how concerned are you that the WRU have lost or losing patience with the Dragons and they're just going to end up folding? And he did use my favourite phrase. He said, every year it's the same. Jam tomorrow, he said. Every year you promise it gets better, it never does. He said, people look at us and they think basket case. And I'm sat there thinking, yes, you're right, mate. This is my language. They're right. And I'm glad he said it to him. And then he completely ruined it by having a dig saying, oh, well, I don't like the word Marquee because Richard Ibbard and Ross Moriarty were Marquee players and, results didn't improve. They did nothing for us, which is very unfair. They were 2 very good players for the Dragons, actually. So the first part of his question was really good. And they did look a little bit uncomfortable when he was talking about the Dragons being a basket case and jam tomorrow. But David Wright was quite clear. He said the new PRA deal will take 4 clubs for the next, was it 3 or 4 years? He said. I think it's 4, isn't it?
It is 4 years. That's what's been published in Wales Online.
Yeah. So he said, look, it would be very difficult without huge legal costs to cut a region. He's made that clear. So it's going to be very difficult. If we are in the same predicament in 2 years' time, then I wouldn't have delivered. I wouldn't have changed the future. And he said, we don't want to be a basket case. We want to be up there winning. We are not in the worst situation financially. He said if it did happen, though, if the Dragons were cut, it would be purely down to results. but the criteria isn't purely down to results. So he was basically saying, look, we're not going to go anywhere. We got a good relationship with the WRU. He did talk about the new deal. It's very secure. We have a very good relationship with the Welsh Rugby Union. He did mention that Abby Tierney has gone to him for advice as well, Gareth. Didn't he? I'm sure he said that
He did,
you know, Abby comes to us for advice, which I thought was quite interesting. But it was a really good question, the first part of it anyway. But yeah, he said, I don't want to be, I don't want us to be a basket case. I want us to be competing. And then it came a question from you, Gareth, which got a round of applause as well. Can you remember what your question was?
I think I did start by saying I like Marquee signings.
You did, yeah. So, well, I actually like Marquee signings.
Yeah, it might have been a bit
I like the word
underhand.
Marquee, I think you said, wasn't it?
I love the word Marquee, yeah. Because to be honest, it's something I've been crying out for. So I asked for clarity on Marquee signings. So making sure, is that we're just signing a good player, or is it actually a player beyond the salary cap? And is there any criteria as to what a Marquee signing is with the WRU?
Yeah.
And from Rhys Blumberg stating that Philo was spread too thin and couldn't concentrate on defence and performance dipped, why was Dye sacked at that time and essentially leaving us short on the coaching front like the previous season before?
Yeah, and you got a round of applause. Mike clapped as well. It was good. It was a good question. So the Marquee signing, Blumberg was a little bit hesitant and he said, look, the criteria set by the WRU, I'm not sure if I can answer this, is what he said. And then he sort of said to David, can I say something? And then David said, look, there's a ceiling. The ceiling is technically over 400k. That's what counts as a Marquee signing. Any play over 400k. Yeah. We will see if we can sign one or two. He said, certainly one player I can sign. I can't promise two. So he has committed to a Marquee signing, but he can't promise two. And then Dai Flanagan. The question, why do we sack him? So Blumberg was quite honest. He said, look, Dai came to me and wanted a decision for his future, and he put quite a lot of pressure on in that first block. I advised him it wasn't the right time to approach the board. They then came to the conclusion it wasn't working out. We had to have a look at Philo, and clearly we are content for what we have seen, and we think he's a great fit. So what's happened is Dai has gone to Rhys. He said, look, I want assurances on my future because I'm in the last year. I want to know what's happening. And Blumberg has gone, no, mate. No. You know, maybe ask later down the line. I don't want to come to the board with this. It's the wrong time. No, I want assurances on my future. Went to the board. Yeah, we're going to get rid of you, actually. You know, no, you've pressured us. So that's what happened. What do you make of that then, Gavin? The reason for Dai going. Are you satisfied with that explanation?
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We said at the time, it's a results business. It was about results. I still of the view that we didn't have a plan and we sacked him without a plan, and now we're making out that this was the plan all along. I don't think this was the plan all along. And having a look at Philo is not a plan. Having a look at Philo is just realising the situation you're in and understanding your resources. That's not a plan. That's a very different thing to a plan. So, yeah, it's fine. It's reasonable. Do I think Dai was hard done by? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do. I feel sorry for him. I really do. I got a lot of sympathy. He's a good bloke, and as we know, Gav, you know, we've spoken to him personally, and yeah, like you said, Gav, I hope he gets a job in Welsh Rugby soon. You know, a high-profile job in the game.
Massively satisfied with the Dai Flan answer because it still felt like they didn't have a plan after sacking him.
No,
there was no, you know, the fact that TT was then spread too thin. Well, there was no plan then to support him and make sure TT got off to a good start with good resources around him. It's just a little bit short-sighted. But just on the Marquee signing, I think before that evening, I felt if for the Dragons to be positive for me next season, we would need to confirm, obviously, we're going to spend up to the new salary cap. And if the owners are serious about investing, bring in a Marquee player. I did question whether we could even attract someone to be classed as a Marquee player. But the fact that that's happening, I think that is really positive for the fans. We should expect to see more quality on the field next season than we have this season. I mean, we'll wait and see what gets signed. But my expectation is that we're going to sign good players.
Who would you want then, Gareth?
Oh,
So, Marquee signing. Reece Blumberg's come to you and said, "You know what, I'm going to put you. You've got plenty to say. Go out and find me someone."
I mean,
who
there's
you
a big
bringing
part
in?
of me wants the Marquee signing to be the 10 because who doesn't love a big name
Yeah.
at 10? But really, bring me an international class second row or tight head.
Spot on. I agree.
You
We
know,
got to be
that's
looking,
what we
so,
need. If you bring me over
yeah.
someone who's had 10 caps for either South Africa or New Zealand at tight head or lock, I'll be very, very happy.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, I'd love Etzebeth, but I don't think our budget's quite going to stretch that far.
No, I don't think any of the Barrett boys are likely to come to.
No,
Well, don't forget, one of the owners, who's probably the American, Young Hugh, he did inquire about Anton DuPont.
Yeah.
So maybe this Marquee signing is Anton DuPont. Then
Tony
again,
Bridge
pigs might fly.
Yeah, you know, he's no Marquee player. A player towards the end of his career, but a player I genuinely think we should look at is Thomas Francis.
Yeah, he'd be good for us.
Yeah. Thomas
Someone who can actually
Francis,
scrimmage.
and I know another one that people like to use his name as if it's a bad thing, but Dylan Lewis.
I'm not a fan of Dylan Lewis. I will say that, but I think he'd probably be the best tight end at the Dragons.
He would absolutely not. He is the worst scrummaging tight end on this planet. Honestly,
wow.
I'm sure Dylan Lewis is a lovely man, right? I'm sure he's lovely to kittens. And he cannot scrummage. He is, oh my God.
I've never rated him. I'll be honest, I didn't rate him for Cardiff. I didn't rate him for Wales. However, if we signed him, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate that signing. I think that's where we are now, and I think
he's better than Chris Coleman, but
you said it, not me. I told you don't name names.
International recognition.
He's better than other tight ends. Sorry,
he's had more caps than anyone else in our, in our props. So
that'd
be okay.
That is true, but that would not fill my heart with joy.
I do feel like they didn't. I reckon there's more criteria around what a Marquee player is, and I'm sure, from what I understand, is whatever you invest on a Marquee player, you need to be investing back into your academies as well. So if we sign a Marquee player for 400k, from what I understand, that money then needs to also be duplicated into your academies to essentially make sure we're sustainable and protecting our future. So if we're signing a Marquee player, it should hopefully mean we're putting more money into our future as well. So that's good news. But yeah, what does count as a Marquee player? Is Jared Evans a Marquee player, or is he just a good signing?
He wouldn't be on 400k.
No.
I imagine.
We'll have Jared Evans and a Marquee lock. Lovely.
And Jared Evans is probably on about 250 at Harlequins.
So that's what, you think a Marquee player must be a good level of player, but I'm finding it hard to imagine that type of player signing for us.
I'm very skeptical, but let's try and rattle through the rest of this then, because I'm just conscious of time. We had another pointless question from the audience. When this was asked, I was like, oh, for God's sake. Some bloke was moaning about South African teams in a competition. Bearing in mind, this is a Q&A with the Dragons. He said, I was never in favour of South African teams. What do they bring? Well, money, mate.
And world-class players.
How long are we tied into this league with the South Africans? And he asked, what did he ask? He asked if we could go back to the league without the South Africans, didn't he? He was like, can we cut them off? And Blumberg said, look, from a Dragons perspective, we had no say in it. Yeah. He said it was the WRU. He did point out it has made over 500k difference per team. That's what the South Africans have brought. He said South African teams add value in terms of cash, but he did say there is a cost with travelling to South Africa. Didn't specify the cost, but there's a cost for travelling. He talked about discussions with England and a number of clubs in terms of bringing the URC and the Premiership together. I think that's something that we talked about as well, Gavin, with Reece Blumberg when he was on the pod. But he said, look, some clubs wanted it, some didn't. So that's gone to Ben now for a few years, he said. And he said the same thing he told us on the pod. He said he understands the frustration with the RC. It's not great for us commercially because there's no away fans. But he said, you just have to try and embrace it. I mean, I don't know what else he's supposed to say there, to be honest. But I just thought, again, pointless question, mate. Really not a question to be asking at this kind of forum. You don't like South Africa teams? Fine. If you're asking what they bring in, well, do your research, pal. You know, it's obvious they were brought in for money, wasn't it? Someone moaned about the Rodney Road side of the ground. He said that the bars, the food, the toilets not fit for a modern stadium. I'm in the posh seats. I'm over in the Bisley, so I don't have to deal with the riffraff over
The
that side of the
terrace is
ground.
fine. The terrace is fine.
But to be fair, Gav, I mean, I haven't been over that side of the ground because my Newport season and my Newport County season ticket and Dragon season ticket is in the Bisley. Why? Because I got a good view and the facilities are much better. It is pretty shabby over there, isn't it, Gav? You're over there, aren't
Yeah,
you?
do you know what? I'm always cautious to moan about that stuff because I love the terrace and love the noise it can generate. And I don't want us to ever move away from having a terrace. But the food facilities, the toilets and the bar are absolutely pathetic. They're not fit for top flight rugby.
The food facilities are better in the terrace when the football's on rather than when the rugby's on. That's my understanding. Well, it's more. I was under the impression there's more choice when the football's on because when I've been to the football and I've been in the terrace, food is fine. You've got like the van at the top end, and there's a place that does curry and chips.
Okay, I can't comment on that because I'm too busy eating my prawn sandwiches in the Bisley. So yes, I think Blumberg said that they're going to look into it, and you know we understood the concerns. So now this was a really interesting point. I thought this is one of the biggest takeaways for me. Somebody asked, "How is the relationship with the Dragons and the other clubs when they do these PRB meetings? And is the feeling in the room positive?" And David Wright said, "Look, our relationship with the WRU is positive. Forgetting individuals, the professional relationship with the new CEO is positive. She has addressed players and met with us as owners. And this is why I was saying earlier, she does tend to come to us and we are open and honest with feedback. We are good with communication flow." I found that quite interesting, the fact that Tierney goes to David Wright for advice. Now, this is what I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you picked up on this as well, Gav. He said, "I sit on the PRB meetings." This is David Wright now. And he said, "I absolutely hate the politics, bullshit, and backstabbing. I pride myself on being straight, blunt, and honest," he said. "That's why I'm not going to go to him anymore. Reece Blumberg's going to him instead," which I thought was a great little hospital pass there, wasn't it? "Oh, it's full of bollocks and bullshit. I hate it. That's where you're going, Reece. You're going to do it for me instead." I liked what he said, though, about the other members of the PRB, because, you know, it is like the chairman of the other regions there and the CEOs. He said, "I respect the other members of the PRB. Would I go for a beer with them? Probably not." He admitted that. He's like, "No, I wouldn't go for a beer with." He didn't name individuals, but let's just say like Dickie Holland or, you know, Lance Bradley, for example. He said, "There are many people who I've worked with in business in the past who I respect, but I don't particularly like," he said. So, yeah, he wouldn't go for a beer with any members of the PRB. I found that really fascinating and quite open and honest as well, Gareth. What did you think of that when he said that? I thought it was quite good.
And he really gave the air of like, he's the type of guy I want in the Dragons' corner.
Yes.
Because it felt like he will fight for us and he's not going to take the shit and he's going to be straight talking. And I don't think he's going to get sidetracked by the glitzy, glamorous, well, not that there's any glitz and glamour in Welsh rugby, but he did seem like he'd stay on the straight and narrow for us and call out the bullshit. So, yeah, it was really good honesty from him. Quite endearing, actually, to see that. That's what we needed to see from him because it was the first time we met him, which was, he did allude to a couple of times. That it was long overdue. But yeah, it was good honesty, and yeah, the type of guy I want in my corner.
He also talked about he wasn't happy with information being leaked from the PRB meetings. He said he had a suspicion of who's doing it. Obviously, he was not going to name names, but he said, you know, he doesn't like the information getting leaked to Wales Online. He didn't say Wales Online, but he said the media and on social media. And I think we've been on social media. We know the individuals who are coming up with this stuff and feeding it. So he's not happy with it. He hates the politics and bullshit. So he's not doing it anymore. He's passed it on to Reece. So Reece Blumberg's going to be Drag's representative now in the PRB. But I thought that was very interesting. Good honesty and good insight. Yeah. Somebody asked a question that was already answered. Someone said, you know, "Why have you gone for Philo? What is it you're seeing in him?" And Blumberg said, "Look, there was a lot of interest in the head coach job. We had a lot of applications. But we felt Philo was the best fit. Philo's our man. He's the guy. We had a lot of interest, but we chose Philo." And then somebody talked about these new signings are only going to be a plaster. The future is more development on Gwent. He talked a lot about Gwent development. Again, I don't know who this guy was, but he waffled a lot about young Gwent talent. Can we produce more of it? And Blumberg said that he's been really impressed by the number of young players that we have. He claims we have the best crop of 19 to 21-year-olds out of the 4 regions. I'm sure supporters of other regions will disagree with that,
When
but
he was
that's what he
saying that,
said.
I was thinking,
Yeah. If I put that out on social media, I would get pelters from other supporters of regions. You just know it.
Yeah.
There would be a lot of pushback, but that's what he claims.
And I think you could argue that Cardiff probably have a better crop currently.
Yeah. He talked about like Ryan Woodman and all the players. So we got Harry Ackerman and all those guys, and they are very talented kids. He talked about the academy appointing Kerry Jones, Adam Thomas, and Tom Hancock. You know, they've invested in the academy, he said. He talked about Leinster and like their secret is the schools, but he said that the Dragons are going to work closely with Monmouth, who are investing millions. So that's a link up that they're going to do with Monmouth, which I thought was quite interesting. And he said there's other options, Coleg Gwent as well. They're looking at, but he said, look, it's a really positive environment for development and growth. So yeah, which I thought was, standard answer really. And then it wrapped up. That was it. So it ended at 7:43, slightly over an hour, but that was the Q&A. An interesting evening. Some jam tomorrow, some hope, I thought. So based on everything you've heard and read from this Q&A, I'll come to you first, Gareth. What were your thoughts on the Q&A as a whole? Do you feel more encouraged by what you heard, or are you feeling a little bit, I'm not sure?
Yeah, I've come away more positive than I went in, but that wasn't hard. I'll give you an example. I think it would have been really Dragonsy, and we could have definitely heard that the salary cap's going to 5.1 million. Oh, but we're actually going to stay on about the 4.5 mark, cut our cloth accordingly, and carry on. We could have very easily heard that message. That would have been a very Dragonsy message to have. But instead, we're going to meet the new cap, so we're increasing our spend, and we're going to go beyond it with the marquee player. For me, there's not really much more I can ask for investment on the playing side of things. I just hope we actually get those signings right. So proof is going to be in the pudding there, but I'm certainly leaving more positive. I feel like David Wright is the right man.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's the right man to be in charge of the club. I feel like he's got our best interest at heart, and he was quite honest. Question marks over the coaching. Again, there are a few wait and sees. The signings and the number 2 are both going to be important, and also who do we actually let go, and who gets a fresh contract will probably say a lot about the club. But definitely left more positive than I went in, and I think now we're still going to have a tough end to the season. It doesn't mean that if we go and get thumped by Glasgow that the Q&A wasn't positive, because it's a separate thing. It's talking about next season. This season, sadly, is essentially done. But yeah, feeling more positive on the whole.
Okay. And what about you then, Gavin? So obviously you wasn't there, but based on everything I've told you, you've read the transcript. How do you feel after that Q&A?
Well, I think Gareth hit the nail on the head, really. In the things they've said they're going to do, pretty much all you would hope from. But I'm also tempered by the fact what they said about like the JJ Hanrahan news, which didn't come up in that, and the stuff. Yeah, well, we signed these players, but we didn't actually check whether or not they were fit. So great, but also what the hell? So, but yeah, generally, I'm more positive than I was.
Yeah, same for me. I agree with you, Gareth. I left more optimistic. The problem is I always do at these Q&As. But this one did feel slightly different, I think. I think for me, I'm cautiously optimistic. It does sound like they are going to fully invest, which is good news. They are recognising that, the on-field issues need addressing now. We know how sustainable the club is. It's really, I'm not knocking it. I never did. But I want full focus now on on-field matters. And I think the club took their eye off the ball. And I appreciate what they're saying. You've got to be sustainable to invest. I get that, but I want a bit more attention now in the on-field
The
matters.
key bit is when they announce the first of those 10 names or 8 names,
Yeah.
when they announce who they announce, that's the key bit.
Absolutely.
Because if it's, Rory Thornton, not picking on Rory Thornton, just using him as an example.
No, yeah.
Nobody's going to go, wow, yes, this is what we want to see.
Tina Stabia, is that going to get supporters excited?
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But, and now, if it is a Dylan Lewis, let's say it's a Dylan Lewis or Rhys Carey, it won't be Rhys Carey.
No, it won't be Rhys Carey.
No, but, I'm just using current players as an example. Yeah, okay. If it's some massive South African with 12 caps to go in the second row, then you think, oh yeah, no, I'm all right with this. If it is a player like whoever that first announcement, if it's the right one, then we can all start believing again.
Yeah. I think for me now, I need to see names
Yeah.
because I don't trust the Dragons and say, you're going to like who we've signed. I want to see names first, and then I'll decide if I like who you've signed. And I'm not saying that to be funny. That's how I feel at the moment. So I want to see who are these list of players that we've signed. I'm really keen to know who this experienced assistant is. And I think once we get a bit more meat on the bones, once we get names, we can then look and decide, okay, are we now going to move in the right direction? Are we actually making an upgrade on what we've got? But for me, I need a bit more. It's like you said, Gareth, the proof's in the pudding. But I am more optimistic. I am cautiously optimistic, but I'm also wary as well, because we've had enough false dawns and jam tomorrow over the years. And for once now, I really want to see us kick on. I do believe we got good people at the helm. I think Reece is doing a good job. Jonathan Westwood, he was talked about a lot. He's done a great job. He's got a difficult job trying to convince good players to come to the Dragons. But they said that the reputation of the club didn't really come into it when they're signing these players. I like David Wright. I'm glad that he's done this Q&A because, this was the first time he properly addressed supporters. And I like him a lot. He's very blunt. He's to the point. He is very different to David Buttress. But I think it's high time now we start showing some genuine progress. Yeah. And I liked what I heard for the most part of the Q&A. So, for me, I'm cautiously optimistic. But yeah, this season is a complete write-off. I mean, somebody did say in the crowd, didn't they? They said that it was the season was like over by late October or something, didn't they? Something silly like that, but which wasn't technically true. But I can understand it does feel this is total dead rubber now this season, and we probably will lose every game. But yeah, it's all about the future now. Let's see who we've signed. Let's see these names. Let's see if they're exciting or, like you said, are we just going to get Rory Thornton, Tina Stabia, and I don't know, Seb Davis or something like that. But
oh God.
Sorry, guys. Well, Welsh international lock and number 8. He can play number 8 as well.
That is the worry, isn't it?
He certainly some of those words, yeah.
Absolutely. But that's where I am with it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I was going to talk about Wales, but we've run out of time. I'll just say shite. Absolute shite. I've enjoyed the Six Nations so far, but sorry, Warren, it's time to go, mate. 14 losses in a row, falling behind Georgia in the world rankings. I'm getting really tired of people saying, it's not Gatland's fault. He can only work with the players he got. My argument is, you're telling me there's not a coach out there in World Rugby now who couldn't get more out these players. You're telling me Toby Booth couldn't do a better job. You're telling me Franco Smith couldn't do a better job? Nah, not having that. You're telling me Simon Easterby and Mark Jones couldn't do better jobs? Nah, not having it. Not having it.
And the thing is, well, he's only got the players he's got. Yeah, but he's not selecting them. He's not selecting Gareth Anscombe. He's not selecting Max Llewellyn, who's one of the form players in the Premiership. So what he is doing is selecting children, and then, it's not my fault that these kids who aren't ready for international rugby are getting mullered. It's nonsense. And I'm old enough to remember the 80s. We were awful in the 80s. This is the worst Welsh team I can remember.
Yeah, I grew up in the 90s. I was born in the 80s, but my vivid memories or first early memories of Welsh rugby was the 90s. And it was bad then, mind.
Yeah.
But we are the worst Wales team I've ever watched. And it gives me no pleasure to say that. It was awful. Absolutely awful. We just look so toothless in attack, don't we? Absolutely toothless. I will say, my dad did text me after the game. He said, "Oh, it's like watching the Dragons just in a bloody Wales shirt." I sent you the text, Gav, didn't I? And I watched it thinking, bloody hell, he's right. But in fairness, Wainwright was brilliant off the bench against Italy.
Oh, fantastic.
How good was he?
What an
And I thought
impact.
Faletau was okay. At first, I was like, oh, he hasn't really done much. I did actually watch the game back today for some reason. He was better
I
than I
thought he
gave him
was okay,
credit for.
Toby.
Yeah, he was okay. He wasn't brilliant. He wasn't the Faletau we all know, but I wrote him off after that game. But when I look back, it was actually all right. Superb.
The thing is, he's used to playing in a poor team, so it doesn't phase him.
Yeah, no, he's
Yeah.
when the final whistle went, so I'd been playing rugby, and then I was stood in a clubhouse of a club where I know most of their senior players, and this is no exaggeration, almost the entire club just turned and laughed at me when the final whistle went.
Oh no! Oh,
Grim.
that must have been really difficult, Gav, to deal with better jokes now. You know,
it wasn't the best minute I've had in a rugby club. No.
No. Do they know you support the Dragons as well in Southampton Football Club?
Oh.
And my club had lost as well in the cup semi-final, so you know.
I know. Oh,
I wasn't having a good day. And I'd lost about 5 scrums against the head as hooker, so I wasn't having a good day.
Right, quick prediction: Wales wooden spoon.
Oh
yes
God,
no?
Yeah. God, yes.
Yeah.
Gav?
Yeah.
You don't think we can beat either Scotland or England? I don't, because people still say, "Oh, don't write off Wales against England, especially in Cardiff for the roof closed." But I don't see enough from this team at the moment.
There's no confidence in the side, is there? And I think whether it was Gatland's fault in the first place or not, you lose that many games, you can't believe in what your coach is saying. They look short of it. So, no, not a hope. England, they think they've had a crisis. They're a good side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of them are as good as Ireland, though. As much as this is the worst Welsh team I've seen, this is probably the best Irish team I've seen.
No, it's Scotland's year. Well, it will be one day, I suppose. But we keep hearing it's Scotland's year, and it never is. It feels like the Dragons. It's going to be our year. Never is.
Ireland at the breakdown today, and people saying Scotland weren't poor. They weren't poor. They just couldn't get anywhere near the ball because every breakdown, the Irish slowed it down.
But to be fair, though, having Finn Russell and Darcy Graham in that sickening clash, that really disrupted them, and that did make a big impact. But yeah, it just feels like Scotland are the Dragons of international rugby. You know, it's like every year they get built up, and this is going to be our year, and it just.
I hope there's no Scottish listening, dear me. That's a tough thing to say. But yeah, they're awful. I do like Mike Phillips often tweets, doesn't he? Oh, it's Scotland's year again.
Did you see Alex Cuthbert? He just tweeted laughing emojis.
Did he?
Yeah.
A friend of the pod, Rhiannon Garth Jones, was genuinely of the view that it was Scotland's year. Which I will remind her when I speak to her next.
But let's end on a positive note. Wales are still on for the Triple Crown. They're still on for the Triple Crown. It's a fact. The Triple Crown is still on.
And the under-20s one.
Yes. That was a good win.
Yeah. Dragons.
I'll tell you what, mind. We do. We have good representation at age grade. You know, people do knock us for not providing enough players for Wales, but for age grade rugby, we've provided really good players. A lot of them as well. Harry Full was good. Franklin was all right. The scrum half. Evan Minto. Now with Tane leaving, that's a guy now we really need to be pushing in. He looks a boy,
doesn't he?
He looks excellent ball carrier. Did you see anything in Wales under-20s, Gavin?
I did, yes. Yeah, I watched the game.
Yeah, was you impressed by Evan Minto? Our number 8.
Yeah, he was excellent.
Yeah. See, it's positive. You know, we have got good young kids in Gwent, but
isn't he only like 18 or something ridiculous as well? He's playing a year. Oh, is he just turned 19?
Oh, I think he's not quite 19 yet, is he?
Yeah, I think he's proper young. Because when he played pre-season for the Dragons, I was like, "Ooh, is this kid?" I think he scored a couple of tries pre-season. Yeah, and he just seemed to
he scored against Hartbury, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's played a couple of senior games. He played against Newcastle in the Challenge Cup. He's one for the future. Owen Conker I really like as well. He's one for the future, but he's injured at the moment. So, I would just like these really talented kids to play in a good team. That's what I'd really like.
They will next season.
It's going to be our year. It's our year next year. Same with Scotland. It's our year. Right. We'll leave it there. It's been a long one. Gareth, thank you for joining me and chatting about the Q&A. Good to see you as well in person last week. Gavin, great to have you back. You have
Good
been
to be
missed.
back.
So, yeah, thank you for that. And thank you to our friends at Riverside Sports Bar for their continued support of the podcast. We'll be back to review the Glasgow game. Yes, Glasgow we got next, isn't it? That's the one to look forward to on a Sunday. But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one. Ta-ra.